Welcome to Pixel Theater, everyone. I am your host, Nick Noel.
I'm also a host, Ron Stratton. Welcome.
And today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about the movie Tekken.
You're tough, man. I used to watch you street fight. $100,000 to whoever kills that kid. It's nothing. Just another amateur. Think you're gonna puke?
I already did that.
Which I think should be in the Guinness Book of World Records for most time the word Tekken has ever been said.
Tekken.
Oh, man. In case you forgot what the movie was called, they reminded you.
Yeah. Tekken, very big deal in the movie Tekken.
Big Tekken deal.
And for those who are unaware, Pixel Theater is a podcast. You could probably pick that out through how you're listening to it. And it is one dedicated to film adaptations of video games, which is a very maligned genre, and rightly so sometimes, I would say. Yeah, they're not always great. The last couple we've watched are stellar examples of that. But I do find them fascinating as exercises in how do you translate something to a medium it was never intended to be translated to. So those kinds of works of transmedia, how do they function? And it does. I find it very fascinating when it's clear that there was some sort of interest and like love for the source material that the writer or the director has, and like how they try to make that happen, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then there's the ones that are just clearly like, people like Tekken, let's make a movie, and then they don't care what it looks like. So do you have any initial thoughts before we go into our first segment here, buddy?
No, it's just to echo off of what you said. It is fascinating, especially as video games are trying to become more cinematic, to make a film adaptation. Like it just the redundancy, diminishing returns is a key factor. And I can't wait to talk about Tekken.
I could wait. I could wait a little bit. Okay, but let's go into our first segment, our feature presentation. Okay, so Tekken. A little bit of background. So essentially, Tekken is, I guess, a story of a poor man who lives in kind of the slums area of a future city, and he enters into a fighting championship that I don't even remember what the point is. Is it just that they get money? Is that it?
Yeah. So it's 2039. The world's just in complete chaos, and Tekken is like a conglomerate in the United States, right? Like there's a bunch of different factions in the USA. Like it came from Japan. Like that, this all got so muddled so quickly. But so Tekken hosts these Iron Fist tournaments, and if you win, you get money. I still don't really get you're not paying £1,000 for oranges anymore, or something. If you're,
I guess. And the idea is that there's like all these big corporations, and they all have one fighter, and then there's like the public fighter, like the people's champion, like somebody who comes from the slums who can also compete. So this guy, like, seemingly stumbles upon this championship. It seemed like he wins this fight,
trips into this.
Yeah, it's just like whoops. And he, goes through it, and he like ultimately turns out he's the grandson of the head of Tekken, and then he wins the championship and he owns Tekken, and that's how it ends, with him achieving the American dream of murdering his father and taking over his corporate empire.
Yeah. That seems accurate.
So to start with, was there anything? What are your initial thoughts? I guess let's start there.
Oof, it was an exhausting movie to watch. I don't know what it is. Like I there's just so much going on. Like the first act was so hypercut and truncated.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just kind of go through. Here's his mom, and then she trained him, and now she's dead, and like it just all of that felt like it was in such fast forward to me.
They really rushed the emotional resonance to get to the mediocre fighting.
Yeah, weird, right? And there was this. It's interesting because I think we've talked before about games and like they don't necessarily show like fighting games, especially like you're not really getting a sense of what the actual plot is. And Tekken was a major one for me because especially this seems to cull from Tekken 3 and I think Tekken 5. But it's kind of throwing in things from all over the place. And like there was 7 or 8 games last time I checked. But they're all kind of this power struggle, with Jin and Hayachi and Kazuya and their relationships. But you still don't really know what's going on. Like, it would just be this really beautiful, for the time, CG movie of like a guy climbing out of a cryo vat, and there was like a kangaroo with boxing gloves.
Sure.
I mean, Tekken was kind of bananas. And so to see a movie adapt that, I've read that the creator said this has nothing to do with the games. It should be considered a fan film. Which
the creator of the movie or the games?
Of the games.
Okay.
Yeah. So through that lens, if this was on YouTube as someone's like fan attempt, I'd give them kudos. But aesthetically, it's so weird. There'll be glimpses of like, this is how you would do the game cinematically, but like our man Carrie from Mortal Kombat, to try to bring that hairstyle to live action, this didn't work. Like I just, it was a very weird look to me. They should have just ignored that.
So
or gone wilder with it. Hiroyuki Tagawa, is that?
Yeah, Hiroyuki Tagawa, who played, oh god, the main guy in Mortal Kombat. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Shang Tsung, thank you. And honestly, in Mortal Kombat, he was probably one of the best performances there. And in this one, he's doing a fun performance too. Maybe not as much fun as Mortal Kombat, but that might be directly related to how much he was paid. But
it's a little bit of a paycheck /
yeah,
right,
but he's still you don't get the impression that he's not trying, and I appreciate that. And he seems to be having fun.
He's a thespian, man, so he makes it work regardless of the vehicle.
Exactly. That's the thing about him. He always brings it, regardless of the source, the quality of the material. And so this is another time where we've got someone who was in a video game adaptation coming into maybe a lesser work. You had and both from Mortal Kombat. We had last time with Robin Shao from Mortal Kombat, who was in the Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li, and now we've got Carrie Tagawa, who is in this Tekken movie, and it just seems like I do wonder, like, are they cast because they were in Mortal Kombat, or are they cast like as like kind of a like, well, they'll watch it because of this, or they'll watch it, or they'll cast them.
No,
I mean, I know they're not bad actors by any stretch of the imagination, so maybe it's just a coincidence. But I don't know. I always feel like if you've been in one, going back to another is kind of like if you put your hand on the stove and it burns you once,
right. Yeah.
But if you do it again, like, that's kind of your fault.
Well, I think everything, especially post Matrix Hollywood, is like, because the Matrix, those guys went to Will Smith and was like, yeah, you're gonna jump in the cameras and do this, and Will Smith was like, thanks, but no thanks. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't sound like this was gonna be good, and it became such a huge hit. I think any actor reads a script and goes, maybe, like, maybe, you think of Gods of Egypt, like all those guys are sitting around on like blue backgrounds, and you're riding a giant scarab, and they must have felt like idiots, but part of them might be like, this could be Avatar, this could be, like, you don't know if you're going to be in the next big thing. So I think you read a script and you see something in it, like, maybe this one will be good. Like, you don't like, it's a gamble. Or, you're an actor and you want to work, and it's just enough zeros to, you know, pay off your mortgage or get a new house or something. Like, I don't
That's
know.
true.
Like,
As we talked about in the Hitman episode, Timothy Olyphant had just bought a house, so he was in
yep.
Hitman. And you know what?
Of course.
You're an actor, you got to work, man.
Yeah.
So I the reason I fixate so much on Kerry Tagawa, and I apologize, I'm not good at that middle name, and I know I'm going to butcher it. I'm sorry. Is that, it's one of the elements from the game that they put in, like the physicality of that character, with the haircut and everything. And this game or this movie, and also Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li, it's just interesting what they choose to bring in and what they choose to like get rid of. So like,
Right.
like that haircut shouldn't exist on a human man. Like, it doesn't make any sense. No one else in the movie has anything like that at all.
No one else comments on it. Someone should comment. Someone should say, "Bro, what is this? What are you doing?"
I mean, yeah. If you look at like Tekken the game, where they have like a cheetah man, yeah, that haircut makes sense in the context.
And everyone's hair does this, so
Yeah.
like everyone looks full blown Super Saiyan. It fits right in. To have
But,
one
like,
character embrace that,
But it's
weird.
like one character has like clearly does his own haircut, and everybody else goes to Bo Ricks. It just seems really weird.
Seems weird, yeah. But like you touched on with it's funny that they will embrace the cyborg crazy demon Yoshimitsu, who's a samurai.
Mm-hmm.
But like, they don't bring in Armor King or King, the wrestler with the cheetah mask on. It's just really funny that what made the cut and what didn't. And I know these characters, and it all blends together in this movie for me. I'm like, wait, okay, the blonde's Nina, but is that Anna? Like, and I don't know the one. It's been like probably 10 years since I played a Tekken game. So
there was also there's also like the fashion choices for especially the female characters. Video games don't have the best reputation for their subtlety when it comes to the costume designs for their women. Their female characters, excuse me, not their women. That's weird. They're female characters, and it so doesn't work when you try and translate it to film. It just
really
looks
creepy.
like someone is like a living cartoon. It's so weird.
It felt like there was some scenes missing, and this was a very well done pornographic film. You know what I mean? Like this.
Yeah. We watched the edited for TV version of this softcore Tekken porn.
Tekken, for some reason, the 2Ks are X's, but you call it Tekken still. Like it felt that grody. You know what I mean? Like I don't think. I mean, all video games, especially from this era, inherently had a problem with like female representation, and Dead or Alive was more egregious because they literally had jiggle physics that was advertised for that game. It's awful.
God, I completely forgot that was that was a thing that they sold the game on.
I was gonna say that might have been in the commercials. Like, it was definitely in articles.
There was a whole team that had to run the jiggle engine, or something. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. That would not fly in 2020 Twitter world.
Well, yeah. I mean, they'd still do it, but they'd call it something else. They'd call it their realistic motion
real world
department.
Gravitational pull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the game designers would be subtly like really creepy about it. They'd be like, we've really figured out how to make these look real, just really how they would exist.
They weren't subtle even back in the aughts, and this was going on late 90s. They were very, but what I was getting at was like Dead or Alive really embraced that being creepy. Tekken didn't seem to be that creepy, but through the lens of the film, it definitely felt creepy. Like Nina's outfit is another one that someone would not wear in public.
The Tekken film is the perverted guy going through artistic photography shots of like,
right,
yeah, she looks pretty, and it's just like, come on, man, this is a gallery.
You're in a library, sir. Will you please? Yeah, it's bad. So I don't know. This is a very hyperkinetic movie, but not. I say that as a negative. The hyper jumping to flashback scenes of lens flares. Like there's so many of them. That was a major knocking point. And it felt 4 hours long. Like I just it was a grueling watch for me. I don't know why. Chun-Li like was not this bad like, as far as pacing issues, I guess.
And this is not, and it's not a long movie, right? It's like 80
it's
minutes
like barely
or something.
130.
Yeah. Okay. It's a little bit longer than I thought it was, but it's still not that long. I watched it in like 2 parts because I just found it too boring to make it all the way through.
Done that. Right.
There's a couple scenes in here that I thought were especially telling about how low budget this is one when they go to that nightclub that appears to be populated by 8 people. Like,
right.
So they sneak out of the Tekken offices where they are, which from what I can see seems to be like a poorly decorated like 1990s basic cable sci-fi set that they repurposed for this movie, where like
this came right off of a Stargate pilot.
Yeah, exactly. Like it literally it reminded me of Babylon 5, which I love Babylon 5, but Babylon 5 did not have a lot of money, and the sets
did not.
The sets look like close-up play set, like when you not play sets, but like the sets that are in like lower budget plays, you know, like you can see like the paint strokes and stuff on it. But that's what this looked like. You know, it was just like a generic room with, you know, some sort of blocky table. So they leave there and then they go to a nightclub, which seems to be in the same building, like in terms of the decorating. Seriously. And then you know how nightclubs are traditionally packed with people? Like this, plenty of room to move around. People seem to be just lazily dancing. Just couldn't afford enough extras to fill in this small space. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I don't even know, like, what did you? So this is, you know, this is a fighting movie. It's kind of like a, you know, I always go back to Bloodsport, you know, which is
we brought that up with Chun-Li, like, you know, things that we would change, and I touched on like it not actually being a tournament. Like this at least embraces the point of the game was these cage fights, you know, so that I give it points for that, for just not wasting time and getting right into it. And Bloodsport's such a vehicle for, you know, like Mortal Kombat riffed so heavily off of Enter the Dragon, and you know, but that style of film is what most of these games are based on, you know. So it's I get why they have to add these like post-apocalyptic little weird B plots to not be, but they need to just embrace, all right, let's just do Bloodsport but with these wacky characters, you know, like that's
fine, you know. Like
anyone in the audience came for that, you know, they just want to see good fight scenes and a representation of the characters they liked in the games. I don't know anyone that asked for a Tekken movie. you know, Street Fighter, sure. Mortal Kombat, because Mortal Kombat's got, in my opinion, a really rich mythology. I'm fine if they want to keep trying with that franchise, and I guess Tekken does too, but it's confusing. I don't know what the hell's happening.
I mean, Tekken definitely does feel like the B-level version of like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, you know, like it's like, there's people who like it, but it's not huge and nobody's like obsessing over the mythology or anything. Something I did think was interesting. Well, we'll talk about this maybe in the game, but like they bring in this concept of I learned a little bit of history, I guess, from this video game, where they bring up the concept of the I'm gonna butcher this, I'm so sorry, Zabatsu, maybe. Zabatsu, which is a family controlled conglomerate basically that was around in kind of the earlier in Japan, or not, maybe not earlier in the pen, but like 1800s or so in Japan, where it's like a vertically integrated family controlled monopoly essentially, that like has a bank and then that funds all the actions of the corporation. So like it's a completely somewhat corrupt, probably, like, organization, that the Tekken Corporation is one of these, where it's like completely controlled by one family, and completely subsuming, or all of its activities are only within the company. And that would have been a really interesting idea to bring up, but that they do not explore at all in the movie.
They don't explore it all. There's a spinoff with Trump that I won't get into, but that would be funny. Anyway.
The last thing I wanted to mention, just because I thought it was hilarious, and I sent it while I was watching. I sent it to you and Dane. Was the way they the way they monitor the ratings for the fighting tournament, and I was just like, they're really, like, they control, like, they're essentially the government for this part of the world. They're bothering to monitor the ratings. Like, can't they just force people to watch it? Why does it matter? But it's also like you could see it, like, it's just like a bar graph of, like, fluctuating, and then as people are fighting, you see, like, it's like medium level ratings. First of all, what does that mean? What are you talking about? Yeah. And then, like, when
it's on in the background, but they're reading a newspaper.
Yeah, and then when the main character comes out and starts fighting, like, it goes from medium to high ratings, and it's like, oh, thank you for that visual. And it's also like, was ratings ever part of this? Why does anyone care? Like, it's never been like a, like, we must get excellent ratings for our fighting tournament, or else our third quarter profits are gonna enrage our shareholders. Like,
we gotta sell those spots. Those spots.
Like when you're a completely self-contained entity, does it matter? Like, there's no shareholders. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who are you?
They're not competing against another. I mean, I guess they are, but yeah.
But this is the only fighting tournament. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. All the other companies come to this fighting tournament. Like, what is this? There's no WWF to their WCW. There's just it's just this.
Maybe they should have had that. Maybe they should have made up, like, alternate ones happen. I don't know.
I do.
The movie has a lot more problems than
like
that.
What if, like, that would have been an interesting adaptation where they were just like, okay, here's the thing. Instead of being about fighting, it's going to be about a fighting tournament, but it's going to be about the machinations and marketing campaigns that each corporation has to go to in order to get their fighting tournament.
We don't even show the fighting. We just follow, like, one promotional team.
And, like, so, like, there's all these things that, like, go nowhere. Like, there's the guy who has cybernetic implants that they say is illegal, and nothing happens. I guess it's just to make it more impressive that he gets beaten, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even remember his name. I don't remember anyone's name. Like,
that was Brian Fury, right? He had this gray hair. See, it's weird because, like, there's a full-on cyborg in the games. And they allude to it in this. I think the girl says to Paul, like, "Oh, what's under your skin?"
Mm-hmm.
But now those characters are blending together. I don't know.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say about this movie?
No.
I don't know what the budget is, but I'm going to say half of it went straight into some sort of like slush fund or something. Like, somebody embezzled something on this movie.
$30 million. Oh my gosh. Do you know what the gross is, what they made back?
I remember it was very low.
Oh my God. $1.5 basically. 1,000,006. Yeah, 600,000. Wow. Oh, that's brutal.
Okay, so some production company didn't have to pay any taxes for like 3 years because of this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move into our next section where we talk about the game itself, and we'll go into the arcade. Yeah. I imagine you have a little bit more experience with this game than I do, and mainly because you have more experience with fighting games in general. Because as I've said on every podcast where we've talked about a fighting game, I am bad at fighting games. I can never remember the button combinations. I get stressed out when people are hitting me. Like, I just can't do it. But I do have some memories of watching this game like in an arcade in some mall, and like just appreciating how bonkers it looked. Like with, you know, all of the crazy characters, you know, like in Street Fighter. Nah, not even in Street Fighter. That's Street Fighter has some pretty crazy characters, but I guess it's like this feels like that. And then if Street Fighter is like the normal world, Tekken does feel like a cartoon version of Street Fighter, where like you have even more exaggerated weird people. Like everybody's weird, like not
Sure.
even,
Well,
you know, like
when this came out, it was there. You know, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter were kind of like the juggernauts, and those are more rival brands. Although it was never really marketed that way, they cater to totally different. You know, Mortal Kombat was more about like, oh my god, there's fatalities and a lot of
yeah.
turtle gameplay. Street Fighter, I think, is a more legit strategic like experience. There's a lot of thought put into the
Mm-hmm.
mechanics of it, but
And
3D
Mortal
engines
Kombat
started to
at this
become.
point is just so like, let's figure out the weirdest way we can rip this guy's head off.
That was the only thought put into it. How
Yeah.
cool can we make the fatalities? How weird can we get with it? Um, but the 3D engine started to become big, and the first one out of the gate was Virtua Fighter, and that was Sega's big franchise. And it was, you know, it looks like the I Want My MTV video now, but at the time it was very like powerful stuff. I used to go, and my friend at MSU, we'd play in the dorms, and it was like this is like Virtua Fighter 2 was so cool, and so Tekken was kind of more of a, yeah, you think that's neat, look at this, like this
Mm-hmm.
is the better version of that in every way, and it went harder, and it was really a triple A title for the PlayStation. You know, PlayStation was early days. I don't know if it was in that first cycle of launch games or not, because the first game, I think the launch with the PlayStation was a game called Battle Arena Toshinden, which is funny because Yoshimitsu would fit more in that game. He's just kind of out of left field. But then Tekken came out and it was over. Like especially Tekken 3, I remember being a really big deal because it was the first arcade perfect translation. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you played it, like they shared engines, so if you played that at home, it looked like the arcade, and everyone
Yeah.
went ape shit about it. And that one was really fun because it embraced a lot of ludicrous stuff. I think there's like a volleyball game you could play. There was like a side scroller like Final Fight. Like that was a jam packed release. I like that game a lot.
Was I and yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, am I correct in like Tekken was kind of this evolution of fighting games where it became a much more like 3D environment where you could like,
Well, yeah. So Virtua Fighter was 3D, and it was a lot of like kind of like quick dashings in and out of 3D space. Tekken was all about like circling, and like it was really like working in pairing and countering moves by moving in 3D space and attacking, and that was really innovative at the time. It was that really made the game stand out. And it was really big about these 10-hit juggle. Like everyone had their own 10-hit combo, and they were ludicrous. I just remember like just forward and square and circle and a lot of juggle mechanics. It was a game where I think I've brought this up before, but I spent a lot of time learning the strategy. But then I'd play a guy who would like take his palm and just do this against the face buttons, and he would beat me. So it was, I gave up on being a major Tekken junkie real quick. But
yeah,
I always liked the games.
I do think it's interesting because, you know, the kind of 360 element, the, you know, the be able to move across 3 planes, or 2 planes, no 3, because up and down, back and forth, and then around. It does seems to be really cool and like a obvious like next step in like fighting games, but it's not something I've seen actually embraced by like even modern like fighting games. You know, I played a newer Mortal Kombat when we were talking about Mortal Kombat, and yeah, it's there, but it's such a small part of the actual combat that it like almost isn't, you know.
I don't want to say regressed, but we've embraced. See, the problem is that's not even a problem, but the people making the games now grew up playing these games, so it's the 3D thing kind of faded out of importance.
Mhm.
Now it's more like, oh, we want it to look and play like the original Street Fighter, but with super beefed up 3D graphics. You know, so they want the 2D gameplay, but with the 3D aesthetic, and that's what most games do now.
I do wonder if it's like it is because there's such strong like feelings about Street Fighter 2, like the way
Oh, I
that
think
looks and
so.
how it plays, that
Yeah.
deviating from that in a fighting game, at least the big ones, like it isn't the experience people are looking for, really.
Yeah.
Like,
Because
and
Mortal
it's same with
Kombat's
like same with
leaned.
Mortal Kombat, like Mortal Kombat
Yeah,
was.
Mortal Kombat's leaned into that really hard. It's all about strategy and combos now, more so than it's ever been in that franchise's history. Like I mean, they'll always claim they have, but it's never been as mechanically sound as it is now, in my opinion.
Mhm.
These last three Mortal Kombat's are really well balanced. I think they're embraced by esports and the tournaments that people play. Like they're really good fighting games now, as opposed to just being cool looking. Because Mortal Kombat dabbled. Mortal Kombat 4 tried to be Tekken, and whew, boy, we could do an episode on that. Just that was a bad game.
um how familiar are you with like the story of Tekken? Like what's happening in
Not
it?
at all.
Okay.
I just know that there's these bizarre, really cool at the time CG like interludes. Like you'd start the game, you'd see all these cool FMV sequences, but I had no idea what was going on. Like the blonde Nina was like cryogenically frozen. She comes out of it. Hayachi was always throwing his son off a cliff, and you're like, "What's this about?" None of it made sense to me, and I didn't care, so I never explored any of it. Because with that one, I don't think, unless you got online and read about it, I don't think there's any information apart from those FMV sequences. So
Yeah, it's interesting because this is, again, what we've talked about before is, how do people learn about the lore, like,
yeah,
and it seems to be a lot of like, well, the ancillary kind of like extra media that comes with it, or through articles or something that people read. But there, if you just play the game, you don't get a sense of like who the characters are or what's going on. It's very like surface level.
yeah,
um and at least my memory is you could always like skip over it, even if there
yeah.
was some sort of scene, which I definitely always did, because I, up until well, still to this day, I don't really care about what the plot of any game is.
Yeah, true.
I'm the worst.
Um,
But it is interesting how this is like harkens back to kind of Japanese history, like it's saying with the structure of these corporations, and then also you know it's a smaller story in some respects, like Mortal Kombat's
sure.
about the fight for the world,
Yeah,
um
saving Earth's souls. Like everyone
yeah.
will be damned forever if they lose.
And this is just kind of about like, well, who's gonna control this company, I guess. So I guess it's somewhat like Street Fighter in that aspect, but without, I don't know, like for me it just seemed like it didn't have as much emotional resonance,
Yeah.
or at least wasn't trying for as much. I don't know.
No, it's the stakes aren't as grand, I guess. You know what I mean? I think they could probably lean into that a little more, but it's tough because I'll save it for when we talk about what we would do better. But it kind of did what it needed to do to convey the story of Tekken for a movie. It just didn't
Hmm.
do it very well.
Yeah, I think the overall plot of the struggle of a family to control a corporation, and then all the other people who are trying to vie for that power as well, um comes across. I still like this, like what you're saying, like they did it poorly, is like, I don't know why anyone else is there. Like, why are
Yeah.
besides
Why are they
like,
there? Like,
why are they risking their lives for this?
yeah, and that there's a way you could have demonstrated that, but they don't explore it. So you just see these guys are just here to fight.
Hmm.
And maybe if they would have painted it more like this is what the UFC has turned into, and it's more about the glory, I guess, and there just happens to be this corporate component to it, then it might make sense that all these guys are there. But yeah, it's weird. It didn't demonstrate why these people would all vie for this title, um, except for just power, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems to be like it's less noble. Like, I think
Yeah,
it, like when we talk about Street Fighter, and like looking at the background, it's always like some personal quest that the person has been wronged and is seeking either revenge or self discovery or something like that. And with this, it just really feels like I want to control a company. so that's why I'm fighting.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe that's because we haven't explored the lore as much, and
I
for
guess.
Tekken fans, we're gonna sound like jerks. I don't know.
No, I'd like to meet the Tekken fan who's well versed in the mythology. I guarantee we won't have that conversation.
Okay, so we've talked about the movie, we've talked about the game a little bit. Let's go into what we think could have been done better, and we'll move into our room for improvement. Okay, so I guess to start with, in any way make me care about what's happening, like somehow, like this
if
guy
you're
is
gonna
literally fighting his father who raped his mother in order to create him, and
in the most blasé
and then
fashion.
and then I think his grandfather either accidentally murdered her. Like
Yeah.
I was a little unclear. So like he doesn't like any of these people,
Sure.
obviously, and I don't get a sense that any of that matters or like
No.
it in any way is impactful. Um, the son character, or the father character, I can't even remember his name. Um,
his father, yeah,
yeah, Kazuya, yeah. He's a bad guy, and I know that because the movie tells me. But I don't know.
He was an interesting character performance-wise. I felt like I was watching Josh Brolin play American Psycho, like Patrick Bateman. You know what I mean? He wasn't bad, but wasn't great either. But I think he just was dealing with what he had with the material.
I would say like it is for these kind of things. Like I think it's so important to have it feel like a lived world, like because it's so weird. You have to have like something as an actor, I would imagine, to like connect to, and it's so hard to connect to anything that's happening.
This falls into the trap of like it almost demonstrates what this world's like, but it's almost comes across as like Double Dragon in a way. Watching this, despite neither plot relating to this at all, I felt like someone had taken the Doom movie and Double Dragon and put it in a blender, like this, because like the way it was shot and lit and all the things that made Double Dragon bad, I felt like we're here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Comparing it to Double Dragon is super accurate, I think. Like,
yeah,
just like it is, because it's got those like family dynamics that Double Dragon has, but then just done very poorly. And and it's got an evil guy who is evil because he's evil,
and he wants more evil, so he can be more evil.
Yeah. And, there's so much about like how they're trying to set up basically that this is like how these companies are like monarchies, where like, you eventually, because it's set up this way, you have to like give power, or it has to be taken from you basically by your heirs, which sets up a weird system if you have like a power hungry person who just wants power for power's sake, which I guess is Kazuya's thing. It just seems like I want this because I'm owed it, instead of like, and all of these things would be interesting if they could figure out what to focus on, but it's simultaneously about just the fighting part, and then it's also about the family dynamic, and then it's also about the reason that the other characters are in the fighting tournament, and then it's also about this romance, and it doesn't spend enough time on any of the things. So like I would cut some of that. Like there's all this extra plot you don't need.
You remember the Van Damme movie The Quest?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's not good either, but I would dwarf that. Like if I were remaking this, even though it doesn't really fit the games, I would have done more to show all these people in their elements, and they get a mysterious invitation, and it promises something that caters to them, and it could be a mystery or what, but you find out Hayachi has a reason to wipe out all of these guys, so he brings them to this tournament in the guise of them winning, but he really wants to take them out. Then you could have the jackhammers, like you could have all this subterfuge happening, but make it more realistic on why all these guys would be gathered together.
Yeah.
And just make it more about the fight and not these rapid weird. Although I find the family, the vertical monopoly stuff really interesting, unless they're going to lean into that and explore it. Don't even go into all the corporate politics. Have it be more about this tournament. And that stuff is more icing that is on the cake, I guess.
You know, I think there's a very interesting story about, well, maybe interesting is a stretch, but I think there could be a compelling story about a fighting tournament that is put on by this corporation as kind of like a way to satiate the masses so there isn't a revolution. And
the
then,
Running Man, like
yeah,
dude under that, like these
like
people love this show or something. I don't know.
Like it gives them a false hope because you can have somebody come up from the gutter and you know, win all this money and all this stuff, and like, okay, great.
Do it like then, Hunger Games. There's some crazy host who's like, look how poor this guy is. He's gonna make it out. You know, like that might be interesting.
And then the twist is, you know, obviously that the guy who's winning could also take over the corporation because he's a direct descendant. So then they have to like scramble, like just make it about that, you know.
Oh, see, that would have been great touch. Like they don't realize the familial connection, and that's how the power over the corporation could be. And that'd be good.
Like I honestly think like because they didn't set up everybody around it, so you don't know why anybody's there, so they kind of have to shoehorn it in, like you were talking about. Like, yeah, I know all these games or maybe not all of them, but like basically Mortal Kombat did that. Mortal Kombat set up who are these people, and then it had them come to the tournament. Like, do that, you know?
Yeah. That's what I want. Also, like make me care about these characters instead of them just being there.
And but also like instead of it being a mystery to the main character that he's related to them, have him know it. Just like cut out all that part where he's like learning about it. Just make it very straightforward. We know he's there to do this. Because like there's too much like monologuing and like exposition that has to happen because characters don't know anything. Like just have them know stuff.
That would have been a much better movie. I like that.
And then we always say like if you're gonna go weird, go full weird. Like go like actually the way these games look, like make that the aesthetic of the world, that, you know, have that incorporated into the design elements of the people around them. So like have random people wearing Jaguar masks and stuff, like have sections like that. Like this is the aesthetic of this corporation.
Detective
this is
Pikachu,
the fighting
man.
style.
Lean into that. Like here's the world and we know this because we're fans. It's the only reason we bought tickets.
Yeah.
You know, they got to stop.
Sonic uses rings as teleportation devices. Why? Why not? What are you talking about? Like
they got to stop catering to all demographics. Like that's the problem with these corporate mindsets with these movies. It's like, oh, we got to make sure Joe Schmo gets what's going on. It's like, yeah, sure, but lean into the absurd of it, and you'll make the fans happier, and it'll be received better. More fans will see it. The fans outnumber the people that aren't fans.
Yeah, money. Like you know it's not gonna be, you know, it's not gonna be The Godfather. Like none of these movies are gonna be, you know,
wouldn't
like,
that be something
vaulted into, you know, cinematic canon or whatever, like the must watches.
Movie.
But you can make something interesting. You know, I would say Detective Pikachu is a very fun movie. I don't think anybody going into it is going to be like, well, obviously this is an Academy Award contender. I don't think they were trying to make that movie, but you could definitely use that movie as an example of how you adapt something from one medium to another.
All that world building is important, man. And it's like, and we talked about it in the review. I was not familiar with Pokemon at all. And I got it, you know, like I totally understood what that world was.
And like they just leaned into how nonsense crazy it is. It's just like, the guy's father is trapped in the soul of Pikachu. Or no, his soul is trapped in the body of Pikachu. That's a thing that makes sense in this world. Accept it. And we're like, okay.
And everyone watching went,
I guess I will. Yep, sure.
Yeah, okay.
And they tried to do that with Legend of Chun-Li, where it's just like, M. Bison put his soul into his daughter. But we're
weird.
But we are not going to fully embrace that because it makes us feel silly. So, and we're not making a silly movie. It's like,
no, this is super serious.
No, it's not. So yeah, you just gotta embrace the goofiness and just fully lean in. And you know, there's a reason why people like the aesthetics and the story of the game. Don't
Embrace that.
Yeah, don't like you can there's great works of literature and there's goofy weird stuff, and I enjoy both equally, except for the part where I like great works of literature because I am a dumb person who doesn't read like great works of art. So
But you know they exist.
yeah, I'm aware of them. I know Wuthering Heights is a book. Right? It's a book, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Until Marvel makes it into a series or something. Or Disney rather.
Okay. So we've got to do our rating at the end of this. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, but I'll give the movie credit. I want to dig out my copy of Tekken 3 and play that because that was a really fun game. So if anything, it got me to want to play a game I like. So I'll add a point for that, I guess.
Alrighty. So let's make this out of. Oh, geez. There's nothing that sticks out to me about this movie that we could make.
Oh, there's something that sticks out.
Okay, what?
Crazy old man sideburn hair or whatever you call it.
So,
Hayachi hairdos.
Hayachi hairdos. What do we want to give this one? Out of 10.
I feel generous giving it a 3. I'm going to give it a 3.
That was my initial instinct as well. I'm going to give it a 3, and mainly for a reason that I didn't bring up, is that I really like that the jackhammer's masks are like those kind of kendo style.
Yeah, that was
masks.
cool. I think
that
they're kind of
cool
backlit.
element.
Like there was a lot going on there. That was really
cool. That was
cool.
the one cool thing in this movie.
I agree, man.
Okay. So that wraps up us talking about this movie. And let's go into our last section where we just talk about whatever we want and everybody else turns off the podcast. Let's go to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Oh, this is the part people sign up for.
Okay, man. So what have you been doing these past couple weeks that has brought any kind of joy in your life?
Well, like I've said before, I work in news, and it's nice right now because there's still a lot of doom and gloom, but we cover more just the progress of the vaccine going out, and that's exciting to me. It's neat we're not anywhere near this being over, but it's just been kind of therapeutic for me to see just the chaotic rise and to get to this point in the year is nuts to me. The fact that it was like, holy shit, don't touch your groceries. Now we have a vaccine going out, and now there's a second one, and like that's pretty awesome. I hope we see the benefits of that by this time next year.
That would be nice. Just to briefly, I think about this at least a couple times a week, which was, do you remember how the president was impeached, and that was this year? Like, doesn't that feel insane?
I felt like 2 years ago.
I know.
Oh,
like that was
gosh.
like, what are you talking about? That was 20 years ago when the president was impeached. Like, what do you mean?
That was his first term out of the 11 that he served. What a long year.
Oh goodness, it's just crazy.
It is. The whole political ecosystem or world, I don't know. Like, it's bananas to see how much influence social media had on all of this. I mean, it's not, but it's just crazy how fervent the passion is based off of a meme someone made. Like that's still like we'll never recover from that. Like that's forever changed media, and like so much of like you've got to deal with what spreads online. Like people, I don't want to go down this hole. I don't know why I'm digging, but like.
No, this is useful for our video game movie podcast. Let's dig into it. This is what, like you were saying, this is what people are here for. In-depth political analysis of social media's influence on society.
Nobody wants my opinion because I just want everybody to get along.
I do. That's the only reason I do this is to talk to you. What do we got?
I just think there's such a large group of people that legit believe Bill Gates wants to put tracking chips in their bodies.
Yeah.
And these people are carrying around smartphones that are tracking chips in their bodies. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like
I
Bill
just
Gates
don't.
wanted to, and he did it, and it's over now.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Like, yes, there are cases of like, I don't know, like you shouldn't blindly accept someone saying, "Here, put this in your body." But I'm pretty sure this vaccine's legit. Like,
Yeah.
no one's doing this to hurt you. You know, like there's the side effects outweigh, or the benefits outweigh any negatives, I think. So just get vaccinated, wear your mask, and stop bitching about the governor trying to save your life. Like, I just
Oh goodness.
all that's going on. I just try to play video games and mellow out and chill.
Yeah.
I just watched Tenet.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
In your home,
Yeah, I don't know.
like some sort of plebeian. Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I mean,
terrified.
Nolan would be
furious.
terrified. I slummed it with a 65-inch 4K version of it.
Okay, well, maybe arguably better than what you would have gotten in a theater then.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
With the rabble. What did you think?
Do you have any? I don't want to spoil it, but I will say, initially, my least favorite of his movies.
Okay.
Like, which I was bummed to feel, but it grew on me. Like the next day, I was still thinking about it, and I was like, okay, I think the lead actor was miscast. Like, I don't think he's a bad actor. He just stuck out to me. I would have rather, because he's Denzel Washington's son. I would have rather have seen Denzel Washington in the role.
Sure.
I don't know. Like, it felt like Christopher Nolan was doing a parody of himself. Like that's the one thing that was like, remember when I did this in Inception? But it's so grandiose. Like, it felt like an audition reel for let me do a James Bond. And I'm like, please do. Like, if James Bond with this spectacle, but just a simple plot, would have been gangbusters. But it's overly convoluted to the point where it's like, you're just trying to be cool, you know?
I think on Christopher Nolan's or how can I phrase this? His epitaph should read "trying to be cool."
Yeah, it's like there's an innate. It's so authentic in Memento and in Inception and Dark Knight, you know, like. But then on the flip of the coin, you've got, like, in my opinion, Dark Knight Rises, to a degree, Interstellar. Although I liked Interstellar, those movies feel like they're trying. Whereas the other ones are natural. And I don't know what I mean, just, no one's perfect. Spielberg's got quite a few duds. But it's just interesting. He's doing the same thing and just not sticking the landing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with him doing what he's doing because, like, it's his shtick and it's so far good, but it's just funny that it works for Inception, does not work for Tenet. You know, like, it's interesting how that works to me.
Yeah. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts called Blank Check. And the premise of that podcast, if I haven't mentioned it before, is they pick a director that had, like, a lot of success early in their career. And then they were basically given, like, they were able to do whatever they want. So there's a lot of directors that are kind of fall in that category, like Spielberg and Christopher Nolan's kind of in there too. They've done Tim Burton, lots of different ones. And they're doing Robert Zemeckis now. And it's interesting how, because of Robert Zemeckis's, like, massive success at a relatively early time, like basically his, like, when you were still allowed to do, like, practice movies as a director. So still, like, with his, like, third movie or something like that was just huge. And then every movie after that for, like, 15 or 20 years was also huge. Like, or at least very successful. If not, crazy huge. Because, if all he'd ever done was Back to the Future, that franchise, he would just be able to do whatever he wants for forever.
Sure.
Pretty much. But it's very interesting now, like exploring like the lesser Robert Zemeckis works, how he gets like, and I think this might be happening to Christopher Nolan, is you get so wrapped up into what you care about that you forget that you're like in this collaborative environment, and you get too up in your head about,
Yeah.
you know, for instance, like Robert Zemeckis's like mocap stuff that he did, like 3 movies, all of them trash, just like unwatchable, like
It's
in
tough
some
for me
respects.
because that if he hadn't done those, well, this isn't a good argument, but that technology led to how they perfected it for Avatar. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so it's interesting because yeah, they're bad movies, but it's almost kind of like how the prequels are inherently not received well, but because of the prequel Star Wars films, we have digital stunt doubles.
Yeah.
We have the motion capture that allowed for Gollum to exist. You know, like so it's like it's tough because like okay, this didn't work, but it gave us the tools to make it work someday. You know
No,
what I mean?
it's great that, you know, there has to be those people who try it out and tell you how it
Yeah,
doesn't work. You know, like filmmaking is so much like, hey, we've got something written down, nobody knows how to make it, so let's figure it out. um
right.
there's no like massive books that you learn of like, here's what happens when somebody wants a sea dragon, you have to go follow step 1, step 2, like there's none of that.
Yeah,
It's always figuring it out as you go. But at the same time, sometimes it's like, yeah, but did we really need it? Like if you look at like that Avatar technology, it's like, yeah, it exists. it it's still not good. Like it's still not a good movie or interesting. Like
I
great,
think
like James Cameron has wasted what, a decade of his filmmaking trying to make these Avatar movies that
yeah.
I think we all would have been fine if there was just one Avatar movie. Why are you
I know
making
it's weird.
4 Avatar
It's
movies?
and I think you touched on it. You know, like that kind of getting inside your own head. He's fine with the rest of his career being Avatar. Like he's said that. Like he's, I think he's only making Avatar movies from now on, and
Yeah,
that's weird. But
it
okay,
is
like
weird.
I don't know. It's funny because like he's had so many. The man's perfected the science of a blockbuster. I mean, he's never had a dud film, even though you know history showed Avatar. Everyone's kind of like, well, this is Pocahontas. It's made $1 billion plus, so it's like
Yeah.
billions and billions.
But
So yeah,
then
maybe that's
nothing.
just the
Like
secret
I
sauce. He's
I wonder, like, so there's all these, I think it's somewhat overblown, but I've seen a lot of
yeah,
like think pieces about, you know, how, or maybe at least a couple. I'm already exaggerating. About how like Avatar was this massive movie that has made no cultural impact. Like there
yeah.
is no spin-off, there's no like people care about the toys. There's barely anybody who does any kind of like Avatar cosplay. There's no like ancillary
Well,
materials, you
look
know.
at Game of Thrones, man. I mean, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Was something that was such a powerhouse in pop culture. Like after one bad season, went nobody talks about
Yeah.
it anymore. You know,
Yeah,
like it's
you know, I think there's that where like so many people were either like disappointed or just like,
yeah.
I was just in this to finish it at this point. Like, uh, you know, I didn't really care what the ending was going to be. I just wanted an ending.
I think we're just fickle now. Like I like you look
Yeah,
at these recent Star Wars movies. I think Star Wars is what it is just because of its pedigree and its history. You know, in the '70s and like
yeah.
creating the blockbuster. I think movies that come out now just don't have that type of impact
Like,
anymore.
can you have a new thing that has lasting cultural impact anymore? Like, you know, I would say maybe Star Wars does because it was always something was happening. You know, like,
Yeah,
you know, like as a kid, like it felt like, you know, Star Wars was taking like had been for around forever, and like the time between the last movie and the the third, like the Return of the Jedi and the Attack of the Clones was like 15 years, maybe
yeah,
like 10, 15. Like it's not like it had been like, you know, 50 years of Star Wars,
right,
you know.
right.
And like even then, like you had re-releases, he was constantly updating it. Like
Sure,
before
the
he did
special
Clone Wars, he
editions and
did
all that
the
stuff.
special editions that were re-released in theaters, you know. Like it was always something happening, with Star
Yeah.
Wars. Whereas Game of Thrones is like, you have a frustrated fan base from the beginning because people
Yeah.
have been like waiting for these fucking books to be finished for like 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, and
Maybe
that's got to
coming
be
up on
really.
30.
I mean, if you're a diehard fan of the books and you see him getting distracted and not finishing the series to work on these shows that ultimately just kind of gave up on themselves,
Yeah.
like that's got to really suck. I'd be
And-
mad.
And like I was a huge fan of the books, and I used to get like really upset that like George R. R. Martin wasn't finished, blah blah blah. And it's just like, I realized like this man doesn't owe me anything. Like, he writes books. It's a creative process. Sometimes you just
Yeah.
can't write massive, like, these are huge books, so sometimes you just can't do it and you need to go do something else. If he never finishes
get
the
it.
books, fine. Like, he doesn't, I just, no creative person owes me anything. I can choose to buy the thing and care about it or not.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then okay. But at the same time, because I'd been like waiting for something, like I was holding off on watching Game of Thrones for years. And then I was just like, the books weren't coming out of the book. And I was just like, I just want some kind of ending. I just want to stop like having to think about it. So I just, binged all the seasons and I got through it all. And I think that helped because I hadn't been thinking about it for the amount of time that people had. And
Yeah.
And so like when I watched, 3 seasons in a couple months, basically, something like that, and it was over, I was just like, okay, fine, it's done now. Great.
I just got so mad because they, you talk about a blank check. They had a blank check.
Yeah.
HBO was like, you can have more money, you can do 3 more seasons, and they didn't feel like it. And that's what frustrates me on that front. Like,
the
it could have kept going.
The tragedy of Game of Thrones is how much the creators and stewards of the various properties get sick of thinking about Game of Thrones, and they just get exhausted and stop. They're just like, never mind, it's too big, I don't care anymore.
The dragon flies away.
I want to go do something else. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's great. Like, no, we don't want to do more episodes of them tromping through the woods. Dragons take them everywhere. It only takes a minute. It's fine.
Yeah. The eagles show up and pick them up and they fly away.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. So anyway, that's all. I guess we can wrap it up. I don't know.
Tekken was a thing.
Tekken was a thing, and it's okay. I wouldn't advise anybody watch it.
No, this one, like, there's nothing fun about watching it. Like, this one, I would recommend to stay away from.
Okay, well, this is going to wrap up this episode of Pixel Theater. Thanks for listening, everyone. We've enjoyed the time we've spent together asynchronously, and Ron and I enjoy the time we spend together synchronously. So if anything, this is a beautiful testament to our enduring friendship of making a podcast that is a goofy thing that we have invested a lot of time into. So
you gotta do something.
We gotta do something. So if you enjoyed the show, tell your friends. You can find it on all of your favorite podcasting applications. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Hit us up. Tell us what you think. Give us suggestions for movies we haven't done yet. And we'll see you back here next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.